Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. And I always enjoy following the honourable gentleman from Plymouth and hearing him rant. Increasingly, I hear him rant, but he is right on many of the points that he raises. And I know that he's a fastidious supporter of farming and fishing in his community and in the South West, and I particularly enjoy working with him on this topic. And can I congratulate the honourable lady from Edinburgh and Leith? Sorry, beg your pardon, but for getting this debate, because it is hugely important. And I think the two things that have really focused people's minds about food security has been the situation in Ukraine, but also the pandemic. And the scorched earth tactics that are being used in Ukraine will have that knock-on impact that were raised by the honourable member from Strangford. And these horrendous global shocks and events are giving us a moment of pause, of contemplation and of thought as to how we can improve food security in the United Kingdom. And again, the honourable gentleman from Plymouth is absolutely right. There does need to be more faces in this chamber debating this issue, talking about this issue. And I hope that this is going to come from the Agriculture Act when the DEFRA Secretary comes back and reports on food security this autumn. I would like the Minister's confirmation that that is going to happen and that it will happen on the floor of the House of Commons, and that we will be able to have the opportunity to challenge and question what is in that, and also what lessons might be learned from it as well. The pandemic showed for the first time, and certainly in my generation, if I may, Mr. Chairman, empty shelves, and the fact that our global supply chains are incredibly fragile. And I think it's important to say we weren't alone in this. I don't necessarily take the view that this was just a cause of Brexit. I don't necessarily think there were other. I think there are a number of other countries in Europe who found themselves in similar situations. But it did emphasise the need for us to act, and to act fast, to consider that we need more at-home production, less faceless suppliers, and to talk up what we have, Mr. Chairman. I am surprised, given the incredible quality of food that comes out of my constituency in South Devon in the form of fish and shellfish, as well as the meat and dairy that is produced. The quality is extraordinary. There is an abundance in our seas and on our land. The high quality of what we produce is known over the world, but we talk it down so often, and we have to change that approach. Breaking that stigma of British food quality should be a top priority for any Member of Parliament and anyone in agriculture. And at the same time, we have to also think about how we can introduce the conversation around food and farming in our schools, ensuring that young people get onto our farms and onto our fishing fleets to understand where the food comes from and how we produce it and how we can do it in an environmentally responsible way. These are the things that should be incredibly important, and with that, the seasonal variety. Because at the moment, our food security sits at about 65%. Now, whether or not we have a target that pushes us up to 75% or 80% is for members in this House to discuss, but it's not something I'm inherently against, because at least we can then have the national ambition to ensure that all parts of the United Kingdom are producing and able to be reassured about our food security. The fourth point I just want to make on this is that we spend a lot of time talking about rewilding, and I spend a lot of time talking about regenerative agriculture, and there's a lot of conversation about the intensification of farming. There is a balance to be had. We have to find the balance between rewilding, intensive farming, and food productivity. And my biggest concern that I have is that the Environmental Land Management Scheme that is replacing the Basic Payment Scheme says absolutely nothing about public money for public good being about food production. Can we please update this and make sure that farmers in my constituency know that the new scheme is not just about rewilding, which is of course important, and biodiversity is important, but it is about food productivity, and that they will be supported in doing that. There are so many of the points that I've already have been raised already, but I just would like to make two quick points. Firstly is that I'm always happy to bash supermarkets. I think they have an enormous responsibility, and the fact that none of the supermarkets in the area of Brixham, the most valuable fishing port in England, that stock any fish from that port is a staggering realisation. So we need to use the procurement bill when it comes before this House to ensure that supermarkets are incentivised to buy first from local suppliers, to support the local economy, to create that circular economy that our farmers, our fishermen, our local producers, our butchers, our bakers and our greengrocers can all benefit from doing so. The second thing I'd just like to say, and to quibble about, as I sit on the International Trade Committee, and I spend a lot of time scrutinising the trade deals that we are doing, and I understand the reluctance and the hesitancy around the deals that we are striking, but we are making progress and improving how we do the negotiations. The agreement that we've come to with New Zealand is significantly different from that of Australia. The intention for what we want to do in the Gulf is also providing the opportunity for British producers to actually export, and that's what our focus should be on. We all too often talk about the import impact. We should be talking about the ability to have an export impact, and our producers can do that by scaling it up, and it would be the benefit to all of our constituencies. But I respect the honourable member for bringing this debate to the House because it is an important issue, because it needs focus, and because I think there is commonality across this House in ensuring that we do better on food security and that we can help those who are on the poverty line, who do use food banks, that we can produce more food that is healthier and better for people in school. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.